All right, y'all, welcome to episode 35 of Music in the Minor League. This week we are joined by Vanessa Jean Speckman. Vanessa's a great graphic artist. You've seen her work on album covers like John Moreland, Michael Dean Damron, Micah Schnabel, and many more. You've seen her clothes on people like Lydia Lovelace, Frank Turner, us. I mean, she does great stuff on George L. Blosser, who's a great photographer from Fort Collins area. Just, man, she does great stuff there. She used to run a zine. And then in recent years, she started a band called Me Rita, which has grown quickly into like just a straight up rock and roll tour de force, man. And we're really happy to finally sit down and talk to her. Before we start, we'll do some housekeeping things. Again, Me Rita has some music available online. They just finished up some dates around California, and they've got some things coming up in the future. A lot of it's her and Micah touring together, so it's more like acoustic versions of the songs. But still, man, they bring it. It's high energy, really good stuff. So what do we have coming up? Well, same deal as last time, man. We're not playing any February shows. It is Valentine's Day. We didn't really plan on this one being out on Valentine's Day, but it's kind of sweet that it is, because when me and Kim got married, we made a centerpiece out of her art. So that's our Valentine's tie-in. So I guess it's officially official that it's a Valentine's Day episode, right? All right. Anyways, real life. No shows this month. Full band show coming on March 9th at the Old Quarter. March 8th, our new album's out. If you like what you hear on the podcast, tell your friends about it, post stuff online. We're really excited for this interview, so let's just cut through all the mess and let's get to talking. First, let's rock out to a Me Rita song, and then we're going to get to the interviews. Like I said, this is a good one. Talked about a lot of real stuff, and it was so good to sit down with Vanessa. So let's cut it. This song is called Measure Twice, Cut Once. Hope you dig it. Later. All right, y'all, welcome to this episode of Music in the Minor League. Today we are here with Miss Vanessa Jean Speckman. You may know her from Me Rita, her band, or she has been on album covers for people like John Moreland, Michael Dean Damron, or Micah Schnabel, and Ghost Shirt. You may have seen her clothes on people such as Frank Turner and
Lydia Lovelace.
Yeah, there it went. I don't know how I forgot Lydia's name. Originally from California, transplanted to Columbus, Ohio, where she lives with her partner, Micah Schnabel, and now is back back in California just hanging out, doing some shows this week, or at least tried to, and then hopefully we succeed this coming week.
Yes, that is the plan.
So thanks for coming in and talking to us. And in full disclosure, like, we are big fans of hers. We have, for me and Kim at our wedding, we made a centerpiece out of Vanessa's art. Mm-hmm. You can see us sporting her gear sometimes. A great photographer, George L. Blosser out of Denver's caught many pictures. That was actually a great icebreaker with him, was that we knew Vanessa. Yep. And also see her work in his self-portraits. Mm-hmm. And I even went as far as I have permanently drawn Vanessa art on my arm. So, we're big fans, and it's great to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Complete honor.
It's one of those disclosures where it's like,
That was an awesome intro.
Well, it's like the NPR thing, this is a sponsor of this of this network.
So you basically recused yourself from this interview?
No, I'm just putting my favoritism out front that I am a fan of Vanessa's art for what's it been now? Like almost 9 years, because me and Kim
I want to say the first thing I ever saw that you did was John Moreland's album cover. That's how I was kind of introduced to your art, and then saw more of what you did online, and
that was an honor to do that. And I remember seeing your photos pop up online when George Blosser was at your Colorado shows, and I was like, George is in the right room with the right people. That's kind of the thing. If you're in the show that George is at, you're at the right gig. So hats off to you all.
No kid, we've totally seen shows George has shot, and then like that band would come through here like 10 days later and it'd be like, we gotta go. George went. Right. Like we know him and Elaine up there, just like, oh yeah,
I go to good shows.
We suddenly get all of our music recommendations out of Fort Collins, Denver. So but it works out pretty good.
Right.
But anyways, I know we're just talking about our things, but I think, what was it? September of our first time you met him was 9 years ago. It'll be 9 years in September.
Probably.
That's when we went to did the album release. We came and saw y'all at the the White Horse in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, yeah.
And that's where we got our Take My Hand, Run Fast poster.
Oh yeah.
That was one of you were a big part of a romantic gesture for me, so
Aww.
And here we are. We got married, so it worked out. So
definitely worked out.
I know. Now we all doing musical projects and expanding the creative forces. So
pandemic changed a lot, didn't it?
Right.
So now that I talked about us for 5 minutes to open the podcast, which I like to do. I like to think about me first and then move on to the person we're talking to. So Vanessa's here. So to start out, I know you did stuff for years as far as merch. Like, I don't know if you call it tour managing, but I know you did stuff with like Tim Barry and people like that out on the road with them, helping run things. And then you decided that, like we talked to the last person we talked to, like, something about that was like, I should get up there and perform. I see all the stuff these people go through. Like, I should do that.
Right. You sit and watch for long enough, I think, and then you're like, oh, I'm ready to put me in, coach. So yeah, I think my start into all of it was I was doing a zine called Lubricated Zine that was like 2008, 2009 was my heyday back then. And that's how I was introduced to a lot of different musical scenes outside of the Bay Area in California. That's like how I met Tim Barry and just a lot of people in the music scene from doing the zine. And I was booking a few shows at just a small dive bar here in San Jose called The Caravan. And so the zine was kind of my entrance into the music scene. I was doing photography. I had graduated with an art degree, so trying to find my place in it without being on a microphone. And then, like you said, Kim, a lot changed during the pandemic, and I got pretty angry and wanted to be loud about it. And Call Me Rita has become less of a poetry band and more of a sonic band now at this point. So, but yeah, the zine was my entrance into kind of meeting. That's how I met Micah for the first time before we were together and stuff like that was through my zine. So that was a fortunate and an exciting time too. And then, I got tired of covering other people and talking about other people, and in a positive way of finding my voice again. I think I wanted to get away from creating for myself, and so it was nice to get involved in community that way. But I also feel fortunate to have recognized, okay, it's time to come back and circle back to me and my work. So that's when I started doing visual art, like the text art and the shirts and figuring out how to tour as like a pop-up artist and kind of define myself that way. So kind of taking the long road of doing a lot of different things, but I feel fortunate for it. Sometimes, you're like, oh, I wish I had focused in more, but I think it has allowed me to do a lot of different things at the same time. So
I think that works well. Oh, sorry, Hill.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, you can talk over me? That's fine. I'm just the guy in the dungeon. It's cool.
Stay in your car.
Right. No, I think that's you say it's the long way, but I think also by doing it that way, you now know more of the aspects that go into, not only just merch and that part of it, but just the whole aspect of it and touring and all that. So I think it makes you more of a force when you're finally, now that you're out there doing it yourself, like, you know the kind of the pitfalls that are out there and the BS that people try to spring on you. So I think if anything, you've put in like all those extra hours that I think you'll see the payoff quicker than maybe the rest of us starting just being a garage band and going that way, So.
True. Thank you for the positive outlook on it. It's so hard when you're in it,
Oh yeah.
But even coming from like Helps does art as an artist, like he has an art degree as well, art teacher, and dealing with Dan, who is a graphic artist. I used to do photography. Same thing, had like a website version of like a music zine. That's how I met a lot of people. And a lot of that you're like by yourself. So even when you're creating things like a lot of photography, things like that, it's kind of the lack of community. So one thing I always enjoyed about music was you get to go in, you can have your vision, but it has to filter through all these other people. And it's pretty exhilarating when you're like, oh man, like we went in there and I had this, and with these people, I became this, so something more gratifying about that. So that's why, I don't know, I think it's good to get yourself, to kind of get yourself in that mind space, kind of working in, I guess, individual arts, because it's not often you sit down and draw, paint something with somebody on like a same canvas.
Right. No, that's very true. I've really been enjoying the community aspect of making songs with the band and then playing, or doing to the shows. We're all in it together, and that is a very powerful and gratifying feeling.
Yeah, and I think part of the fun part too is when you're working with more people, you get that immediate feedback. I think coming from an art background, one of the most stressful and exhilarating times of being in art school was the critique process, getting that actual live feedback. So it's nice when you can kind of ping pong ideas, get feedback, and in real time, kind of, because you kind of miss that sometimes when you're working individualized. So I think that does kind of help a lot with the process. And I think we talked about it yesterday with the other day with the Rock Bottom String Band. Yes, whatever you create is what you created, but when you have other people that have input on it, it kind of takes down these paths that you didn't even think about, and suddenly this thing that was small and very kind of microscopic can bloom into this giant thing. And it's pretty amazing how that kind of organically happens when you have a group of people to work with.
100%.
Makes me kind of jealous. Kind of jealous for your artistic development that I've seen over the last like 8 or 9 years. But I know not a lot of it was very easy or came at, a decent price at your mental health. But I really, really have enjoyed seeing you, get like the process of you getting on stage. It's been very fun. And even on stage, you're still very visual. It's a blast to watch. So
Thank you. Yeah. And likewise with you. I mean,
oh, thank you.
It's nice to see the whole journey that we've all taken. And
it's been a journey.
It's kind of been parallel, between the two of you, oddly enough. Not that it was
right.
about the same period of time that we met. So. You went from like not doing anything to like, all right, I'm doing this.
Yeah, but I wasn't hadn't mastered anything at that point. It had been so long.
Nobody really masters anything.
Oh, right. I was going to say that I don't think that I would put myself in that category. Forever a student.
Yeah. Right. If you mastered art, no one would keep doing it. It's kind of like, well, I already did that. I'm done.
I forget that.
Progressively, that's the beauty of it.
I think that's what keeps it interesting for ourselves, is not putting ourselves in a box of just making textual art for t-shirts. It's like, okay, well, how can I get bigger and weirder with this? So I started painting on lace curtains and, trying to do stage backdrops. And then that boosted my confidence within my own writing. And then I was like, okay, Micah, let's get weird with this, So I think it goes back to being in like a safe, creative, supportive environment with yourself. That it's nice to have a partner or bandmates or artistic friends that you can bounce that off of. Or, like when I was doing the zine, there was no way that I was physically able to create the actual zine. So I had a friend who was a graphic designer who helped effectuate that in product so it was tangible, and I could have all the crazy ideas and, gather all the information. So I think the extra bonus is finding collaborators who have the same kind of urgency and goals, of personally, like with like Call Me Rita, especially becoming like a pandemic band. There's not been time to be in the same room a lot and practice, especially with everyone in different musical projects that have, different requirements of time and whatnot. So there's been a complete acceptance of imperfection. And I'm okay with that because I want to keep making stuff instead of trying to make the perfect thing. So yeah, having those types of people around you to help effectuate and encourage that have been incredibly helpful, especially after so much isolation and pauses in work and projects.
That's what's been good, like, dealing with I know you had some health issues there for a while, and then you were posting like some of the poetry and things and, going through health issues and on our end too, that it was just like, it was one of my favorite things about art and stuff is finding where you could, it makes you feel less alone because you find people who are going through similar things. So that was always like a great thing that you were so eloquent and so like, open as everything you were going through, that it was kind of like, as we were dealing with stuff like that, it was definitely more comforting. So, I mean, I don't know if that's something you do on purpose, trying to make things more relatable for the people, for the audience, or.
I appreciate that. I think initially it's probably selfish on my end of trying to just express myself, and if it sticks, it sticks, and that's an even more powerful and comforting in a fucked up way. But then the more vulnerable I've been, the more connections you can immediately make with people, and kind of skip the how's the weather conversation and get to how are you and how are you doing conversation, which I think, we all fall into those types of patterns just because of life and whatnot. So it's definitely selfish for me, but it's so comforting to connect. And then it's like, well, shit, we could have been talking about this all along,
Yeah. I'm glad it's selfish.
Well, because that way, I mean, oddly, if it wasn't somewhat selfish, it wouldn't be sincere. If you were too busy, like, how can I say this in a way that's easily, or how can I make this where it's less jarring for people? Then you're not being, as
right.
It's good to be thoughtful, but it's also good in, heavier moments to lay that out and be somewhat selfish. Like, this is what I need to say about this.
Well, I'm firmly in the camp of art should be therapy and healing and not be a stressor. So.
Right.
Put it out there and it connects with people. Awesome. I'm inspired by your, you just put it all out there, which is awesome.
Well, thank you. All
right. I have to ask this question. We haven't done this one in a while, but I'm just interested, especially because you started out with zines and stuff like that. So what age was it when you were like when music became something that was like I'm going to make a zine about all these bands. Like, I'm going to do all this. Like, what was it? What was that spark where like music really grabbed a hold of you?
I was fortunate to grow up in a very creative environment. Those are all paintings of my grandfather's everywhere. So like visual art was always a part of our lives. And like my parents bought a piano at Goodwill for $90 when we were little kids, and middle C was missing the ivory. And when I got to piano practice, I was like, what the fuck? It's a sea of white keys here. Where's middle C? So like there was always appreciation for the music side of things, but not like a comfortableness or a confidence there. But probably in like my teen years, my brother's 2 years older than me, and he was growing up in the Bay Area. We were around like Fat Records and like Epitaph Records, who would put out a lot of punk compilations, and that was like me stealing my brother's fat book of CDs, and he would like make mixes, and I'd memorize the order of all the punkaramas and stuff like that. So my teenage years were heavily influenced by my brother, and like he would take me to a couple punk shows up in like San Francisco, or I got to go to Gilman Street when I was young. So I always wanted to be around it. I just didn't know how to be around it, especially like as a female and being young at the time. I loved the energy and I loved the aggression and I loved the emotion that came from it. But I think the zine was like a way, and like photography photography was like my way of finding my own entrance to it outside of like being my brother's little sister, going to shows with him. But yeah, like teenage years, I was super into like punk music and the punk scene, and I wanted to draw, you know, skateboard decks and surf art and that sort of stuff. And I think that was a lot of proximity of where I lived and what was happening during that time. So yeah, zine or the CDs of my brothers for sure during my teenage years were kind of my entrance and like escapism from the normal stuff that was what people were listening to at school. So
see, it's not fair. I didn't have any older siblings. This is such crap.
See, that's where I was like, same deal. My brother got into skateboarding and then moved on to surfing. It was so like, here's like all these punk CDs. Like I listened to, you know, like more rock and metal songs now because that's what surfers listen to, or more like white guy reggae stuff. Here you go. You got, here's my Black Flag records, and you know, again, like stuff like about like that. So I was kind of the same thing. Like, oh man, like I got into all these bands, and it was always a big thing in a lot of the punk stuff where it was like, you know, you do this, do it yourself, get out and do things, be a part of it. You know, you went to a show and a lead singer was always sticking a mic in the audience's face and stuff. I was like, oh, I can do this.
Right.
So Sam, are you on record as saying that your older brother was a huge fan of UB40?
Dude, I remember him owning that cassette. That was less embarrassing than your brother living in Crystal Beach, Texas, you know, with like a graduating class of 8 kids, and he's like, dude, I can really like playing like NWA, acting like he could relate. Of course, I guess, man, he did get his ass beat a lot. Once he quit football, like he got hassled by the cops a lot, so maybe so. But, you know, small town cops, like, why'd you quit football, pussy? You know, you out there riding that surfboard, we ought to beat your ass. Like, you know, be a real man, go play football and go 1-7 this season. You know,
you let your team down, buddy.
So maybe I'm going through it. Maybe he could relate, but I was always, UB40 was far less embarrassing. Like, yeah, dude, Daniel can be like red, one, you know, and like, so yeah, but no, he had that. I can confirm that was something he owned.
Nice. Oh man, that's great.
When I started getting into ska stuff, when it hit, I started realizing Daniel had all these records from like the specials and stuff like that already. And I just always thought it was like reggae bands, but no, he was into ska before like the wave came.
He was ahead of his time.
I have to say, I'm really jealous because I didn't know about. I mean, I knew about punk rock, but I didn't know about, especially not female-led punk rock until very recently. So I just missed the train.
Same here.
I feel like I missed the train on all of it.
I think like the Distillers were the only female-fronted band that I knew of at that time. Like I didn't know who Patti Smith was or Kim Gordon until I discovered it on my own, like in my 20s. Like
40s.
That was not part of the lessons for sure.
Right.
Yeah, there were a lot. We were weird because in Houston we had a lot of female fronted, like Applicators and stuff like that. That were like female fronted punk bands.
Yeah,
it wasn't like something where we're all like, well, yeah, but there was like, we know like these 5 people that are like all female bands, and then everyone else like, dude, that like does not have, like, that's weird. It was like, oh, okay. I was always like, women got a lot to be angry about. I'd be up there screaming and throwing things too.
Right.
True.
True.
I mean, I was a young male. You know, anytime I was interested in someone and I was too scared to do anything, misogyny, turn to that, be that, make some shitty comment because I can't handle my own emotions. So I'm just saying, most boys do that. Like, well, girls are stupid and they can't do anything. And leave me alone. I'm going home. Play video games.
Boys are taught in the South.
Is this music in the minor league or men in the minor league? Jeez.
No, I'm just saying. It's like, it's pointing out that, a lot of these bands, it's like, it was always kind of an odd thing because they're having to deal with that shit, man. It's like, get up there and be angry and lay it out. Because, as I got older and more comfortable with me and my emotions, it's like, man, like, I'd be really pissed off having to deal with past me. Like, but I guess, I don't know. Stop making
I think a lot has just changed, I mean, even really, myself.
And the culture around us has changed in the last 20 years in just an immeasurable way, but still angry. Still love to hear the ladies yell about the things that make them angry. Makes me happy.
And sadly, it hasn't changed a lot over the years.
No, not much.
Yeah, very true.
What were we discussing? We were discussing, basic misogyny. I watched the Brooke Shields documentaries. I'm way behind on all that stuff, but I kind of started it and stopped it, and then I started discussing it with Sam, and I was just like, but that kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. And he looks at me, he's like, doesn't it? And I was like, oh, God damn it, every day. Yeah, it does.
Right.
To children, basically, all the time. And I'm so glad I don't have children. I'm so because I would feel this.
Agreed.
I would have way more of a panic disorder than I have if I had children that I had to worry about navigating these systems. It's crazy. Okay.
Right.
Off the soap.
No, you're 100% correct. It's overwhelming, and the access to like constant information. Obviously, I think like speaking for myself, but I think like as a millennial, I'm 40, the anxiety and depression has also totally been cranked up, with the pocket information and all of that, and
exactly.
It's hard to navigate as an adult, so I couldn't imagine as a kid.
Exactly. I can't. And as an adult, everything you're frustrated with, you've sort of learned to navigate, but every day you learn about something that's just like will knock you to your knees, and you're like, well, how am I supposed to? Yeah, pandemic really brought it out for a lot of us, I think.
Oh yeah.
So,
you watched a lot more. You got to be a viewer more. You got to see a lot of stuff that was happening. Of course, a lot of stuff too. It's what's distilled for us for ratings too, because break it down.
True.
Being a pseudo librarian, it's like
pseudo.
You go through stats and things because you're bored. You're going through these things like things are really some of the most like peaceful, nonviolent in the U.S. at least. But you turn on the TV, it's like everyone's killing everybody at every moment, and it's just right. It's just you can't even if you know the reality of the situation, you see the sensationalized version. It's just like
this is a 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah, and you start get almost like hyperventilating. It's like, dude, things are oh god, everything's.
How do I disconnect from that?
Except for mass shootings. Mass shootings are like the highest they've ever been, never will probably. But everything else is not that bad. Not as bad as the news would have you think.
Just a mass shooting.
You're as long as you're not in a group, you're doing pretty good.
Just stay by yourself, everybody. That's Sam's advice.
No, but I mean it's just weird because if you pull up any news site right now, it's like that's the entire front page is this person kidnapped, this person murdered, this person. It just does get to a point where it's just like it hangs heavily. It's the reason people dwell so much on mental health stuff. That's because you're constantly bombarded with things that destroy your mental health. Yeah. It's hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
There's a rhyme to the reason for somebody. It's like, how can we keep these people freaked out all the time?
I think it is bled into like everyday living of the driving anywhere in America is tense and hostile. Grocery stores still tense and hostile. You see service workers getting pounded at the fucking Chipotle line for not putting enough sour cream on the goddamn burrito. Like the temperature and the pressure, I think, is like permanently, not to be negative and dark, but I'm going to be negative and dark, has seeped into everyday living. And while there are simultaneously multiple genocides going on and colonization, and I think for us personally, like my conversations with Micah and stuff, that's the reality of the future of the societal contract is broken, and I think that is starting to be felt by us pedestrians, that World War III doesn't have to look like World War II when it's, at a time like happening to us. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is as our generation, late Gen Xers and millennials, we're starting to feel that guilt that we know that the next generations, we're giving them a screwed up scenario. We're not leaving it in a better situation for them, and we're dealing with the guilt that comes with that, and also the frustration of knowing that it wasn't just us. The previous people, good God, boomers. No, I'm sorry, we keep harping on them, but Jesus, man,
a lot of them were still in charge.
Yeah, and they're making decisions that'll be far reaching past their lives,
right?
And it's like, and we look like the assholes because we're the adults in the room, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, but no, I'm not the asshole. I'm still cool. Like I think it's fucked up that people don't want to take care of people, and we don't want to take care of our planet and all that stuff. And it really pisses you off because you're like, yes, I have to look at my kids and say, yeah, guys, sorry, you'll be voting soon enough. Hopefully you can salvage this. I don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
That was the shift from the we to me. It's like people came back and it was just like a lot of came back from World War II and was just like, yeah, I give my kid everything they could, which is good, to care. But it's that whole think about yourself when you start thinking about us, not everybody else. Forget what society goes. Get yours. hours, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, think about when we were in college stuff. Get rich or die trying. Like, that's what's on the thing. That's what's on the radio. And it's like, dude, that is like the antithesis of what we need to be as a people. But there's a reason that's on the radio, because it sold a lot of stuff and made people go out and buy a lot of things and fed the corporate machine. And then when it comes time to this, where people are literally throwing plates of hot food because they don't like the way it came out at someone making $7 an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than being like, it's a fucking travesty that you're only making $7 an hour, you know, to make me food that I'm paying $10 for.
Right. You have to work 2 hours for that.
Well, and what's so crazy is like when I have conversations with like older people, funny saying that because they're in their 40s, but you know what I mean? Like talk with my dad, you know, my dad's awesome. But he's older, obviously. And when you talk to him about, you know, he's like, yeah, I just ordered this from McDonald's and, you know, they got it wrong. And they want $15 an hour. And I'm like, well, yeah, Dad, I wouldn't give a shit either if I was making $7 an hour.
Exactly.
Be happy you got your slop in a timely manner. Like you start paying $15 an hour, then I should be able to expect a little bit better service possibly. But Jesus, I mean, I it's hard to, and he's one of the easy ones to kind of negotiate with because he's not that total like get off my lawn kind of guy. But even him, you're just like, dude, do you hear yourself what you're saying? Because like that's $7 an hour is not shit when you break it down compared to everything else we have to pay money for. And you're mad because the guy getting that is not like, here's your, you know, on a silver platter. Like, no, duh, he's not going to do that.
I am so glad that's your dad. And I don't have that, but I'm glad I have that perspective from other people. But yeah, it's totally frustrating that they can't see like the huge change that has happened in their lifetime. And they're still operating somewhere in the 70s or the 80s.
Well, and I think it's because they had it okay. Like it was decent for them, right? Yeah. They could go buy a car for a reasonable amount. They could go buy a house, like, you know, their first house. Like we can't do that. Yeah, I've been in my career for almost 20 years and I'm still in the same house that my wife and I bought 17 years ago. Like, and I'm thinking we're probably not ever going to move. But, you know, my parents, they could have moved 3 or 4 times at that point just because they had more mobility because of their wages carried more. Wow, this podcast is going down a really weird...
went like a...
But I think
I'm here for it. This is what we talk about.
I think it covers the point. Like Vanessa was talking about, listening to everything, kind of, you know, want to be more vocal music. Is a lot of making art is observing the world around you. It's not just I'm actively running and not paying attention to anything. It's like taking a few moments to go like what's going on? What's a clever way? What's kind of a subversive way to talk about it where people will listen to it and be like, yeah, I like that. And then one day they go, wait a minute, like, what's she talking about?
Right. It's a powerful way to deliver experiences. And personally, like, I don't want to hear like love songs or anything right now. Like there's way too much to be going on that I want to hear those experiences. I want those voices amplified. I'm finding pleasure in learning about other parts of the world through music and through their storytelling and their, you know, narrations of things. So to me, that's the most palatable way right now to like have difficult conversations with those that we don't relate with, you know, because you could sit until you're blue in the face, but sometimes when you have like a personal artistic experience of like listening to a song or watching a show or reading a new book, like it's less I'm lost for words here, but it's less offensive, so the person doesn't have to be defensive. They could be more open to receiving and sitting with that, and they don't have to lay their opinion on it right away. So I think now more than ever, those are the songs and stories that I want to be listening to and reading. I'm an old person on TikTok right now trying to figure it out, and there's a Sudanese woman who is a rapper and like has just blown my mind, not only by her creative brilliance, but she's laying out facts and information about the reality of what's going on in Sudan, and I am learning more things than I learned in my college career, you know, like, and that's on social media, and that's really fucking cool, and that's super accessible, and hopefully maybe if I share that, someone goes and listens to her and like, oh shit, there is a genocide going on in Sudan, and you can back it up and start to learn and take those things in instead of being another opinionated person on the internet, you know, that is, my McDonald's was cold and I'm pissed off about it because it is fucking overpriced, and, you know, there's a reason for all of those things. is, and now we can start to maybe see it through the appropriate vein that is in our own.
Another good thing about being exposed, like you talk about, was you learn about their things, and you also learn that they're not, as far as people in their lives, they're not much different than ours in the fact that, when you're raised, it's like people who live in the Middle East all just live in like huts in the desert, and they're doing this. The picture you get is not the reality of like, these are lush cities where people live very similar. We're not over there just dropping bombs in the middle of an empty field or something. We're blowing up cities, just like where we're at. You're seeing these places. People go to nightclubs, they go out, they do things, they go to concerts, they, do all this stuff together. They meet up at restaurants for lunch. Like, you're not getting this abstract view that you were fed in like high school history where it's like, no, everyone in the country, in the continent of Africa just lives in, tribal areas and do all this. And it's like, no, like these are people in metropolitan areas doing all this stuff, like people in Gaza, like they went in and they blew up like their town squares for a reason. So they couldn't gather anymore. Like, there's things they do. And it's good to see this where you're like, okay, their experiences are totally different because of what's being done to them, but at the same time, like, it makes it where it's far more easy to visualize what's happening when you're like, okay, this would be just like if someone came and blew up downtown Houston, and it was like, how would we feel? We would probably be just as, if not more angry, if someone did this to us.
Yeah, for whatever silly little reason they decided to do it,
Right.
So angry.
But I mean, it's good. It's one of the good things that the young people are seeing through like the perpetuation of, because they use, being around young people, like they use social media a different way than we do, even our 30s and 40s. True. It's like, we're like absorbed. We're talking to people in we're having active conversations with people in other countries and people in other, parts of the world via, again, TikTok, things like that, via even stuff like Instagram and things like they're actually communicating with each other and doing things. So it kind of makes the world smaller in a positive way where we're still just like, what could I bitch about today on the internet?
Yeah. Right. What has happened to me?
Right. That's a beautiful part of, especially for art for me, is like, say again, it was a way growing up in a very isolated area like coastal Texas where there was nothing around. I had to take like a 35-minute boat ride to get to like, solid land. It was the one place growing up where it was like, okay, people in California, people in New York, people in Minnesota or wherever are experiencing a lot of the same feelings that I am. So I'm not just some weirdo out in the middle of nowhere bumpkin guy who, has had some, there's a certain bit of shame if you feel like I'm the only person who's dealing with this. Like, there's something wrong with me. It's like, okay, everybody feels this.
Right.
Which circles us all the way back around to, kind of like what you're saying, getting up there and talking about your reality. As, you may feel like it's somewhat selfish, but at the same time, it pulls everybody in. It's like, okay, I'm not fucked up. Like, somebody else feels this way. Okay, good. And it's.
I think that honesty is so invaluable right now because everything does feel like gaslighting and bullshit lies that we all agreed to be a part of, American society that no longer are in place or serve the whole of the people. So, I think that honesty is completely invaluable right now and is attractive to people because there's not that in the workplace. There's not that, in the political place. And I think a lot of relationships have suffered from the pandemic and isolation and feeling very, very alone during that time. So I think gathering for art, for songs, for creative expression is like a very, very powerful tool that I hope we start to get even more back to, because I know shows and numbers and money isn't there for people to be out and be as social as we were before the pandemic. So I think that's like where the revolution lies is is in that power and unity. And I think art and music are the front lines of that and able to bridge people together,
Definitely. I know, at least in our community during the pandemic, that was one thing we heard over and over and over and over and over and over again was just, I can't wait to get back to that community, that space where we all gathered to witness art being, happening. And, we've been able to get back to it physically, but I don't know that we'll ever get back to it the way it was before. I think things have changed a lot. Obviously, it's not bad for everyone, I appreciate where we are right now. I appreciate where you are right now, especially with this live music project that you're doing. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like this was the natural next step for you? And you're going to keep doing it?
I think so. Yeah. Like, it's hard because like we recorded like kind of like, we call it the long piece. It's kind of more of like a soundscape that the guys created over like a chord progression that Micah originally created for me. Right before the pandemic, we were in England and the UK and had the opportunity to perform some of my spoken word pieces with a full fucking orchestra, which was absolutely amazing. But all of a sudden, we like Micah was like, "Oh shit! Like I need to somehow explain to the guy like what the chords are and whatnot." So it kind of started like that, and so we recorded that in February of 2020. And in a way, the pandemic and all the live streams and lockdowns and trying to gather community socially online, like pushed me to be very uncomfortable performing just with Micah. Like I did not like it at all at first because I was like, well, this isn't our sound. This isn't what I hear and see. And so I think in a way that was really, really good for me because it forced me to perform to nobody, the very, like, you get done and you're like, okay.
It was just a screen. Cool. Still
right,
just a
screen. Right. So I think that was like a positive uncomfortableness for me that maybe like I might have like hid behind the band more. I think if the isolation and the lockdown shows weren't there. So I think that like gave me a confidence in performing. And then like you were saying, Kim, I got very angry and I realized that this is all we get and not to waste time anymore and to like put my nerves or my insecurities of what I think performers should sound and look like. And I was like, well, fuck it. Fuck everybody. I want to do this. I'm going to go do this. And so, yeah, like our newer, like actual songs now are, proper pieces. And so, yeah, it was a struggle, but I think it was a really positive struggle that pushed me and maybe something that I might have like been more timid and hid behind. So, yeah, I think it was a positive push.
Ooh, it's doing that in isolation. God love all of us.
Right.
Figuring that out in isolation. I'm sure that was so fun. What?
I don't want to bum it out again, but
I love a bum out.
I think one of the things that I thought would be good to talk about, especially, right at this very moment, is we were talking about coming out of the pandemic with music and art and things like that. One of the things that's noticed, it's just like with housing, it's just like with anything, the divide has grown. Like, all the big bands are coming out charging ungodly amounts of money for shows. And it's not even like it's killing us at the bottom. There wasn't really much for us to be like on our level, but all the people in the middle, which I would put, a lot of these people, like, y'all have done shows with Frank Turner and stuff like that. And a lot of these bands that we see, like, they're not going out doing nationwide tours anymore. They're usually doing like this quadrant, this, and then a month later go out and do this. And being all the way down in Houston, we noticed that probably 85% of tours do not come all the way down to Houston. It's not worth driving 8 hours out of your way round trip. And, I would consider definitely Micah in the middle of that and, doing that, with years of 2Cal and things like that. And you are doing this together. So it plants you firmly in the center. And after missing you basically just missed a week of work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think it's good for people listening that, aren't music people to realize like how catastrophic that can be in the current world that, there's no like, oh, well, I got sick and it doesn't matter. The club's going to send me my sick leave money. It's
right.
like, you're not there. It's like, well, too bad for you.
Right.
So, not just on that, but I think it'd be good you see it, you deal with it. It's like the financial hardship of anything going wrong these days. How that hits you, how that affects y'all.
Yeah, I mean it's paycheck to paycheck, and you're the only one hustling for the paycheck, or who gives a shit if you do get paid, So at our working class level, like a lot of, and I'm sure same with you all, a lot of your go-to promoters or go-to clubs aren't in existence, or we're experiencing a lot of like backup of, bands higher up than us that are playing smaller clubs. So the numbers are better for them, which I get it, totally obvious,
right.
But that definitely lessens the pond to choose from.
Yeah.
So like we're still trying to book out March, and it's Swiss cheese right now in terms of tours, of like, well, shit, like maybe we'll have have to come home for 3 days and then pop back out to Pittsburgh. And when usually, you know, maybe you can take like a hit and play Western Pennsylvania on a Monday just to get to Pittsburgh and still make a little something and at least play a show and try. So yeah, the booking takes the morale away right now for sure. And yeah, I was sick. Micah was fortunate and stayed healthy, and he was able to go on and do the shows and stuff. And but like we're a 2-person workforce, so you know, that's 2 separate incomes of merch money and stuff like that. So yeah, it's impossible. Like especially coming out of the pandemic, you know, we kept tours shorter just so it wasn't like, oh fuck, we're in Nebraska and you know we've got COVID and we have to cancel the rest of the shows and we're with our rental car and blah blah blah. So it's been a lot of decision making that you never thought were decisions you'd have to think about, and it's just exhausting. You know, it takes away from, for me personally, it's taken the creative juice out of the room a lot of the times because I'm so focused on wearing my business side of the creative work. So that's been like a struggle and something I have to remind myself to like come back to being positively selfish and not being completely weighed down by that. But there's the reality of it. So it always comes back to fucking money, you know?
That's true.
Yeah. But that's the downside. But it's good to, you know, because I think a lot of people don't get to see that, you know, the whole like, oh, well, these people just show up in my town and, you know, it sucks only like 10 people were there, but man, it was great. I got to sit right up front and I got to do this, or that, you know, this happened, or they got sick, and it's just like, yeah, man, like this affects everybody like all the way through.
Right.
And yeah, we've dealt with that a lot with booking where it's like, you know, I'm more crass. Like people are always like suddenly able to date out of their league, and it's like, you're like, oh God, there's like a 75 person room pulling someone who used to play like a theater. And it's like, okay, cool. We can't, you know, there's points where it's like some of the shows, like we can't compete with Tommy Stinson, you know, it's like,
right.
Like, understand, like, hey, y'all have this night open. It's like, oh, they're okay. Yeah, no, I understand.
They're doing some different booking now.
I would book the Super Suckers over us too. I get it.
Yeah. And I don't know about you all, but I mean, it's even like our normal numbers aren't there. Just with people have, you know, as we age, we have more commitments and more responsibilities, and that tightens the purse strings and all understandable things, you know. So I think like at the blue collar level that we're at, it's still a challenge to get like our normal go-to community out. So it's bumpy.
We're definitely at like, you know, if it's a roller coaster, we're on it down because it's like coming out of the pandemic, it was kind of so then like it hit this great. Probably last year, everyone's coming out, they're doing stuff. By this year, it was back to like, man, like I'm busy with work. I've got this. The kids are back doing everything. Like everything got back to, you know, everyone said it wouldn't get back to normal, but it got pretty back to normal.
Yep.
It was like, I'm overextended. I was gonna come, but man, I sat down on the couch and I was like, I ain't getting back up. I'm so tired. And I was like, I understand.
We get it.
We totally get that too. We live next to a great music venue in Columbus. I'll look outside and I'll be like, there's still people out smoking. The band hasn't started yet, so I'm totally guilty of it.
It happens, man. I mean, it's just, you know, we see it even with stuff where it's like, we'll play shows like, well, you know, we're in the, you know, like at the Big Top or something. It's like, well, it's quiet over here, but over next door in the big room at the Continental, and you look in there, you're like, oh God, like
there's like 18 people in there.
Like, what is going on now? You drive home, it's like every club, like, you know, it normally has lines of people. It's like, there's no one here. Like, what happened today? It's like nice weather. It's just weird. Like sometimes people are just like, tonight's not a night, we're all going out.
Odd fall. Who knows?
If I knew the formula, I would share it. I would broadcast it and make a QR code on a T-shirt for everybody.
Right.
Well, even Ohio,
you know what
it's
the
like,
trick is.
Like for us to hear text, like as soon as football season starts, like, well, that's over.
Yeah.
What about Saturday night? Well, Saturday night's college football. Well, yeah, but Friday night, no, everybody's going to the local high school because people care.
Right.
You know? But Ohio, you know, OH, you got all that. You got Ohio.
Right. It rules the school too.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah.
Columbus. Yeah.
Good friend of mine from Youngstown. It was like going through an airport with them. Every time they would see each other across like any airport. They're both wearing their Ohio State or Brown stuff. OH! Like yelling like across the. It's like terminal. It's like, wow. It's like, okay, cool.
I know.
This is such a big deal.
Fuck.
Well, we're getting close to an hour in. We don't keep it too much longer. We're going to step it up a little bit. We're going to be more positive for a second. Health, you're up.
All right. So this is final question time. So this is your chance to give us 3 to 5 bands or musicians that you feel people should know about or don't know enough about. They can be local, they can be mid-level, but just 3 to 5 bands that you really feel people should be listening to. Go for it.
Okay, I'm pulling up my music list because I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but first one is Bob Vylan. I think he's gotten a little more popular, but he's out of the UK, and it's a 2-piece band, and they are everything that I want to hear and listen to right now. There's a Sudanese rapper, and her name is Nadine El-Rubi, Elroubi. I found her on TikTok and completely blew my mind.
Nice.
And I'll give a shout to my drummers band in Columbus, Ohio, Garbage Creek. They are just an amazing rock and roll garage band, and I think they make a really, really cool sound and are doing different stuff right now. So yeah, those have been kind of my 3 power rotations of like not well-known folks.
Nice power rotation.
Perfect.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's one of my goals this week, is to sit down and do playlists of everyone that people have mentioned. So that
Ooh, that's a good idea.
We can share that, because it's kind of like, but it's like, if you're like, here's a playlist, we'll add people every episode where you can go check them out. So
Sam needs a project.
Yeah.
He does.
Something to keep me from staring at my inbox.
I feel like hip hop is really like where the storytelling is right now, and where culture is, and obviously we all emulate Black culture, I think, and I think I've been really attracted to the storytelling and the honesty and like delivering it in joyful ways and complete ownership of that. So I think that's been an attractive sound to me right now as well.
Right on. We'll give them a listen.
Solid.
All right. Yeah. And then to bring it home, is there anything else that, anything you want us to know about? You got anything new fixing to release or anything special going on outside?
Gosh, I'm just going to get really weird in 2024. Throw everything at it. Try to do as much as we can. All of the musicians in our band right now, Todd and Jay, are out with Lydia Lovelace right now. And our drummer Jason just played a show with Garbage Creek. So even though we're not always together, it makes me really, really happy that everyone is usually hustling, doing creative things. And I just can't wait to get in the room with them and keep doing this. So yeah, throwing it all at it this year.
Hell yeah!
All right. Yeah. Well, then on that note, see y'all next time.
Bye.
Thanks, friends.
Bye. All right, y'all. That does it for episode 35 of Music in the Minor League. Man, we hope you enjoyed our conversation with Vanessa. It was great. We had so much fun sitting down and talking with her. We hope you'll check out Call Me Rita. Check out her art. Go buy something from her Etsy page, which will be linked in the episode description. Great stuff. We're big fans of her. We hope y'all will love her as much as we do, man. She's great. Before we go, real quick again, if you like what you hear, share the podcast with a friend. Get the word out. It's the best way for us to share and grow and get the word about all these artists out into the world. If you're an artist that wants to be interviewed by the show, hit us up on Instagram, DM us on Facebook, email us, anything, any way you get a hold of Brightwire or through the Music in the Minor League page. Hit us up. We'd love to talk to you. With all of that out of the way, we're going to leave you with this one. This song is called This Is a Stick Up. Another jam from Call Me Rita. Hope you enjoy it. See y'all next time. Later.